The imprivata identity governance solution can take multiple feeds from multiple systems at the same time, such as an HR system, credentialing system, ticketing system, or bulk uploads from things like student populations, vendors, contractors, those type of things. In this case, we're going to take an import from a HR system, and we're going to onboard Dr. Kelly. So Toby is logged in as our normal HR rep, and he is going to onboard Dr. Kelly. As he onboards Dr. Kelly, he's going to go through his normal process that he's always been doing. In this case, he's going to assign him into the McGuire East facility as in the emergency department as a physician. When he's completed with that, he submits, he exits out, and now he's done for the day. However, a whole bunch of things have already happened. We've already taken the feed from that system and looked at it to determine whether that's an add for a new user, a modify such as a role change or a name change, or a termination where we're going to archive that user. In this case, it's a brand new user. Identity governance has now looked at the attributes to that user and assigned him a role. That role has specific birthright access into specific things like Active Directory, where he's been giving the correct groups or OU security groups or application access based on that group or OU. He's also been given access to Exchange or Office 365. That role also includes imprivata, OneSign, tap and go access. So the first time that user logs into the system, all he has to enter is his Active Directory credentials, and he is already provisioned into all of his single sign-on access for applications that we've created. So he opens his email and he already has access, single sign-on access into his email. Users will also get access to the imprivata identity governance console. Users will see different pieces depending on their role. In this case, as a doctor, Dr. Kelly sees his basic information, and we may choose to give him the ability to change some of that information on his own, such as maybe a phone number or email. However, we also see the ability to see his application access, so he can see what he has access to. Currently, Active Directory. You see he's got Cosmos EMR, but that is an example of something where we're actually waiting for approval before that access is actually granted. He also has email and OneSign access, as you see, and another application that's awaiting approval. Now, we can also give the user the ability to request application access to different things. As we mentioned before, he has birthright access to specific applications based on his role. We can give him the ability to self-request access. Now, being able to request access does not circumvent any approval processes if that was still required. Now, some organizations may choose to do this, and other organizations may just choose to give this ability to the managers to request application access for users that they may not already have. The key piece to this, though, is we're not giving him a full list of all the applications that we have in the system. We're only giving him a curated list that is specific to that role. As we mentioned a minute ago, he is waiting on approval from his manager, Miranda. So we're going to log out as Dr. Kelly and log in as Miranda. Now Miranda, next time she logs in, is going to get a request for approval of access for Dr. Sean. Now, when she logs in, we're going to see that she has this requested approval. Now this approval is coming through email, but we can send it through a ticketing system as well. In this case, she is brought directly into the identity governance portal again and directly to the approval request for Dr. Sean. Now this screen is customizable, but generally requires the basic information that Dr. Miranda, as Dr. Sean's manager, requires to give him the correct approval. She might be able to go through this and view and make sure it's all correct, make sure nothing's wrong. If she determines something wrong, she could change it in the comments, for example, click reject. That would be kicking off a specialist workflow that would go off to a human to make the change that Dr. Miranda requested. She could also click cancel. In this case, cancel would kick off a reminder workflow every day to 2 days to remind her to complete this request. Also, options are assigning delegates. So if Dr. Miranda goes on vacation, she can assign a delegate while she's on PTO. Or we can assign delegates. If she clicks cancel automatically, it would just automatically go to another approver. In this case, everything is correct, so we are going to click approve. Now, this Cosmos EMR is an example of an application that does not have an API or SPML interface or some other way to provision user accounts into that system. In many cases, we can do API interfaces such as Active Directory, Office 365, or Exchange. Also, things like Epic and Cerner are all APIs that we can programmatically assign access to. However, in healthcare, we find many applications that are still legacy that don't have an API to be able to provision application accounts into. This is where Imprivata's bridging technology comes in. The bridging technology will come in and fill the gap for any non-API applications where a human would normally be required to come in and enter information and click boxes. I want to stress that as we show this piece, this is something that normally happens on a back-end bridge server that is normally headless and a user would never actually see. So when we click approve in this case, the application is launched. It's then logged in as the appropriate user, and then it navigates to the correct screen to add a new user in this case. Then starts propagating all the fields to add Dr. Kelly. It's used your correct naming convention for both your username and your password to start enter that user. And then it'll actually start clicking the boxes, doing the checkdowns, getting the user all the appropriate entitlements he needs to do his job on day one. When it's done, the bridge server simply exits out of the application and waits for the next request. An important thing to note is that Imprivata gives you the tools to create these bridges on your own. For example, here's our bridging studio, and here's the bridge that we just used to create Dr. Kelly and Cosmos. Here you see where we create different sequences to do different things within the application, creating an account, modifying an account, deleting an account, all these different things that we want to do. You can see that if something sort of creating, modifying, or deleting a user, all the different steps we would need to go in there to do. Now, it's very simple from our perspective to do this as well. So here's a version of this application. So if I just wanted to say, for example, add an extra text box, I can add an action here. In this case, I'm just going to enter text, and then I can locate target. When I click the locate target, that goes to the application directly, and it's looking at the different fields within the Windows application. We're not doing screen scraping. So you can look at the different object IDs, Windows handles, and you can see where it highlights the box that I want to enter text into. I click on that, and now you see in that box, that's where you know for certain where that information is going to go. You see in our actual sequences, it's actually highlighted in red. So when we go back and look at these things later, you can actually see what happens. So for example, that was a login, and this is, hey, this is where I'm clicking the box to click the login. So all those different pieces are done and cataloged. The key piece to this is that you are doing this all on your own with this user interface. There's no special scripting knowledge. And as part of your normal change control process, when you go through, you just need to go through this sequence again and click all these, run through that sequence to see if anything's broken or changed in that new version of that application. If something does happen to break, you would come through, it would give you a red checkbox, and then from there, I don't have to fix any of the other pieces. I can fix just the pieces where it started to fail. I fix this one section, and then I run it again to make sure nothing broke after that again, and then I'm done. That's part of your normal change control process and something that your team is doing on your own without a lot of special scripting knowledge. At this point, we're going to move on to the back end of the system, and I'm not going to save that. And then we're going to log in as Chuck. Chuck is our security and compliance officer, so that when Chuck logs in to the identity governance portal, he's going to see a different view than any of the other users due to his role. Now that role gives him his scorecard at the top with things that are important to him. You can see it's color coded with things in red that he might want to pay attention to, things in green that are okay. But he also has these other different widgets. Everything is clickable, so if he clicks on it, it'll drill down and give him to the specific place he wants to get to. You'll also see that if he clicks on, say, for example, this Phillips orphan accounts, it brings him directly just to the Phillips orphan accounts. At this point, he can take action on these directly if he wants to. He can delete or modify, maybe archive if we give him that option. Or maybe he's not the correct person to do this because he doesn't have all the information and he just wants to assign a compliance task to somebody else. So in this case, he's going to assign that task to John, where he wants to review these orphan accounts. He sends that off, and now John will get a task in his email or a ticket to review that, and that task is completely audited. And then John can take action on those directly out of the identity governance system himself, or go and review that information and take action some other way. So other things that we can do that are important here are we have different integration with our single sign-on that we can get out of it, for example. So now we have our agent running around on all your computers in your organization that are single sign-on enabled. And so we get data out of that as well. In this case, one of the things we get is shared accounts. We see users logging in with the same account, and that's something we can flag in the system to say, hey, Joe and Bob are using the same account. So we can take action on those sort of things as well. We also, if we're getting information out of a system, we can get inconsistent access rights. So we can say, hey, based on this user's role, we see access that user has within those applications that they shouldn't have, or we don't think they should have. Now, sometimes that's just an oversight, and we can remediate that and say, oh, wait a minute, they should have that access. And we can just go back and change that role so that they have access to that going forward. Or maybe what might have happened instead is now you have users whose roles have changed over time and they've been given access that they don't really need anymore. And so now we can remediate that and take away that access they don't necessarily need anymore. Another important one that we see on a regular basis that customers ask for is periodic access reviews. So for example, Chuck gets a regular report because he's a manager, and he sees all his direct reports and what they have access to. Now he can go through here and drill down and see specific access in here. So in this case, Epic, he can go see the templates and the SER access that user has within Epic and make sure that's correct. We can also add things to see what role those users are in. But importantly, what we can do is give the ability to request changes to this access if it's required. Now this screen is customizable too, and you can say, hey, wait, this user doesn't even report to me anymore. Maybe this user shouldn't even have access to this account anymore. Maybe they need different access or a different account. So we can do that in this as well. But assuming everything is correct, he can review all this and then make that acknowledgement and send that off. Another piece of this is all completely audited, just like everything else in the system. You can see when the task was created, it was sent for review, and it's been opened once before, but no action has been taken on it since then. So all those things are auditable in the system. You'd also see he has the ability to save this for later or reassign it, add comments, those type of things. The last thing I want to show you is a little bit of deprovisioning of the user. So we added Dr. Sean a little while ago. He was a brand new user into the system, and now maybe he just won the lottery. He's walking out the door, never to be seen again. And so we want to be able to deactivate his access. So a couple things here you can see within the system really quickly. You can see the full access this user has ever been given within any systems, especially extreme detail as far as the entitlements within those applications. But again, right now, all we want to do is Dr. Sean's heading out the door and we want to deprovision him. So what we want to do, most cases, healthcare, what we do is we archive instead of deleting. I'm going to click archive. It'll give you basic information about what's about to happen. But generally speaking, here's the piece where we're actually going to take action. We're going to delete some accounts and modify access to other things. In this case, usually move the user into a tombstone.ou and then disable their Active Directory account, and probably disable also their Active Directory account or their imprivata access as well. So in this case, we'll click OK. When it's done, this is the same piece that you've seen before where our bridging technology goes in the back end, automatically logs in, finds that user, and then disables that user within the system so he no longer has access. And when it's done, again, it logs out and it's done and it waits for another request just as before. So now Dr. Sean now has his Active Directory access is disabled, as well as all of his downstream applications that may not have been API enabled as well. So that is the end of our demo for today. I know we didn't cover quite a bit of stuff, so please let us know. We can give you a much more detailed demo. Usually these demos can go an hour and a half with all the information that we can give you. So please contact us for more.